Tramp is like really basement sort of early doors of a group sort of making music, and Push It is like. It was finesse, and like you say, it is like
from the get-go as well. The minute it starts, it's instant, isn't it? You're gonna dance.
It's got that. It's got everything. It's got that a thing to dance to. It's I think to me that is a gateway into rap. It was definitely. I had we were talking about before we started this. Like, what was it now? Now that's what I call Music One. Was your first record?
Yeah.
For me, it was Rap Attack.
Yeah.
And
Rap Attack. I don't know.
Fucking amazing. And Salt and Pepper's on there, and that was like my gateway to learning how to rap. Was rapping Push It, man.
Yeah.
It's so catchy.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Well, back in the 80s, we used to go through that stage of sharing records with mates and stuff, and the Beastie Boys, License to Ill was the big one.
Yeah,
that one just stood out. You know, seeing girls rapping.
Yeah.
She was like, this is brilliant. You know, this is really. I kind of hooked into that, and I think it's still the original version that I got. You know.
Yeah. The video was powerful, wasn't it? It like they looked brilliant, and like their dancing was slick as fuck, and like it just the whole thing was just like fucking hell. This is brilliant. Like these girls just look cool as you like. Yeah, there was a lot of swagger, and they done all right after that as well, didn't they? Fucking huge.
We're doing designs for our next fashion release for the clothes company we do, and it's all 90s streetwear and also the golden age of hip hop, which obviously Salt and Pepper were right at the start of late 80s, coming into the 90s as well. And even there, like you say, videos were slick. What they were wearing was really memorable, and it was different to say like the Beastie Boys. And again, that's one of your favourite all-time records, isn't it? License to Ill.
Yeah,
we were talking last night. I was saying like that was for albums that kind of turned me on to something new. When that came out, License to Ill, I was probably 13, 14. It was like this is the first time I felt like energy in music, where I just thought a little bit of anger as well, and it was like, well, this is different, and like, oh, brilliant.
Well, there was back home. There was almost like everyone was trying to be a little bit in the crew and all the rest of it, and no one really was. Everyone was harmless, But it just gave you a little bit more muscle. That record almost. Not that we needed muscle, and there was no gang rivalry from a state to a state. But if you had that one, you knew something was cool. Do you know? They're listening to the Beastie Boys. They're listening, it just had an element of cool about it.
Did you go out rocking the BW songs?
No, I didn't do that. No, friends of mine might have.
Sick record cover, amazing artwork on the front of that.
Yeah.
Well, we used to hang as kids. We used to hang out on this sort of park, which had like a concrete football pitch with like concrete sort of goals, and it was all laid out with the lino and where the boom box would be. It was like just pathetic, really. But anyway, that was the kind of thing. And the electro albums were big at the time.
Massive.
Electro 1 and Electro 2. Those two records were massive.
Huge.
Really, really good records.
So, as we're getting through your choices and that, now, if you get a chance to sit down and listen to music, or whether you don't sit down and listen to music, whenever you listen, how do you listen to music? What format and how do you take it in? Is it in the car? Do you ever sit down and think, right, for the next hour I'm going to listen to music? And how do you take in music now, Gus?
Well, I would say normally my biggest way of listening to music is I still got my 1210s, still got my decks. Although at the present they're being serviced for the summer, but it's really always been vinyl.
Yeah.
I've never liked CDs. Never liked CDs. I've got half a dozen CDs. I just charity shop them or give them away. And it's a good format to listen on, but it's never really, never. In the car they'd be lying around in the car. I used to love cassettes, but really it's always been vinyl. I mean, we do at home. My wife and I have got a very little Sony, like a Bose speaker thing for everyday radio thing. But really, when I want to listen to music properly and seriously, then it's either a headphones moment or the decks. I mean, we just moved. At the moment, we're in between places, so a lot of our stuff is in storage, which is why the decks are getting serviced as well. Because when we move, we want them set up. But we also have Vinyl Friday. That was a big thing in our house. So in whatever format you play music during the week, whether radio on or whatever, the radio's always on. It's always just on in the background, radio 4 or 6 music. But Vinyl Friday is always quite a tradition, really. I mean, it goes way back, I think, because my parents are and still are massive vinyl fans. My dad's got 2 jukeboxes, thousands of 7-inches.
Yeah.
My brother's got loads of vinyl as well, and he's got his own bar. We talked about but he's got a load of that going on. But as kids, I sort of remember my parents dancing a lot to Motown, you know, Diana Ross and the Supremes, you know, Reflections, which was a big one, always gets in my, I love that tune. But they used to always dance in the kick tune and that kind of thing. And they still do. If we go to theirs on a weekend, it's, you know, the wine's cracked open and the jukebox is on and they love it, you know. And they still buy lots of records. My dad still buys lots of vinyl.
Yeah.
And so much that after it's in boxes now.
Yeah.
But he's just can't help himself, you know. If he goes to a car boot sale or something, he can't help himself.
It's impossible.
Yeah. It's a social thing as well. Like, you know, I've seen a change in some of my parts of my family, the dynamic in their family as things like technology is coming, where sometimes I can go around there and go out my way to see them, you know, and then there's points when we're in their lounge and all 3 of them are on their phone, and it's like, fucking hell, you know, I see you once every 3 months, and I think things like Vinyl Friday, it's a way to listen and enjoy it and engage with each other that isn't about something that's not outside of that room. And I think a lot of that we're losing that. And it's good that you stuck to the vinyl because it's all coming back round now. You're like, oh, you've stuck to your guns and it's paid off.
I have to confess though, I am not great at looking after my vinyl.
Oh, neither am I.
My vinyl is there as a tool to be used.
I'm not 100% agree with that.
You know, play it. You know, and often, you know, it's like, oh damn, I should have took more care of that. Look at the state of that. But I've seen it be played to be honest.
I completely agree. Some of my mates have a go at me because of the state of my vinyl collection and that, and all my, like, I've got drum and bass, quite a lot of drum and bass, and jungle, and probably a few of those are worth something. But oh god, I've had some parties, and you look at it, and you think, fucking hell, who's done that?
What's wrong with a battle scar? I've got one. I've got a track, the Sneaker Pimps 12-inch. Love that. And it's got a massive chunk out of it, half moon. But still got enough of that 12-inch which I can use to mix in with something else. That's fine. It's still in the record band.
But I've got records that I hear on the radio, and because I know that I've got that on vinyl, and it's got a scratch on it, that sometimes I hear it on the radio and I think, oh, I forgot about that bit, because like on my record that I've rinsed it on, it just jumps in, like it completely cuts that out because it's scratched. But what you're saying about Vinyl Fridays and things like that, it's so brilliant. It's like we have like people over, we'll sit in my bar and we'll have Spotify on and we're just talking about whatever, and the music's just in the background. Behind my bar was where I keep my vinyl and like got a little sort of office space, but the decks are down there as well. And sometimes it's like, who wants to go and play some records? Brilliant. And then when we're in there, music is at the forefront then, and then we're talking music and people are looking at the sleeves, and that conversation appeals to me more just because I'm an anorak for music. But it's just seeing people that haven't, a lot of people, my friends, haven't got record players anymore and sold all their vinyl at boot sales and stuff, I'm sure.
Like having a dog.
It is. But I said to them,
you've got a dog, it's a really conversation piece.
When I got my deck sat for the first time, like years and years ago, probably about 5-6 years ago, and I said to my daughter, I said, do you want to come and play some records? And she said yes, and was completely unaware of what I was talking about. And I said, like, right, yeah, look. And I think she was probably maybe 8 at the time, and had never seen a record player.
Probably never seen like voodoo magic,
and
like, when you put a needle on it.
Because she was so used to picking her phone up and pressing something and getting music, she couldn't. Like, it was really interesting seeing someone put a record on for the first ever time and not knowing what it was going to do, and putting a needle on a piece of plastic and it blew her mind. And it was just a really sweet thing to see. Do you know what I mean? Someone like experiencing playing a record for the first time. You think, hopefully, the future now means that they'll you know, people are going to do this.
Well, there is. I mean, there is this trend coming back. You know, like I said to you, I think before about, you know, you can go into stores such as Urban Outfitters or whatever, and you can buy turntables again. You know, this is great. Doesn't mean they're the best quality, but who cares if people are buying records and listening to music in the physical sense, then that's
definitely.
a good thing.
And people enjoy it, and they get a bit headsy about it. Then they can go and you can go for broke, can't you?
Absolutely. I think most people growing up, I didn't get my 1210s till about 5 years ago because I could never afford them when I was a kid. I had a Matsui or a Seisho or you know, some cheap hi-fi system, and I think when you're kids, I don't think you're looking for that pristine sound quality. You just want to play your records. You just want to hear your music, and if it's got a bit more of a crackle and a shitty speaker, it's not the end of the world, is it?
I think I was more. I think I looked after my vinyl a lot more when I was younger because it was something in my collection, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas I think then you get a little bit sort of passé after a while about sort of we've got thousands of records, you know.
Yeah.
So it was all right, stick them on, and
Yeah.
you know, I wish I had looked after them to some degree a bit better when I think of particular ones. But you think, well, sod it, you know, they're in that condition because they've been heard.
Yeah, exactly.
And many people have listened to them.
Yeah. It's that argument of like that's coming bounding around a lot these days about experience or material gains, you know, and you know, would you rather have an experience or would you rather have a car?
Yeah.
And like people are realising now that actually experience is way more important than something that you've got parked or kept somewhere. But I collect comics and I do keep them mostly in pristine condition.
Are they worth something?
Some of them are. Yeah. I've got one that I would say is actually effectively priceless.
Wow.
A good friend of ours, Scroobius Pip, got me for a birthday 5 years ago a comic signed by the guy who wrote it. But when he wrote it, his relationship with that comic broke down, and he doesn't ever have anything to do with that comic really these days.
Right.
And yet I've got his signature on that comic,
right.
and he's as big as they come in that world. So it's effectively like shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So you know, and in fairness, I should probably have that in some kind of like airtight vacuum. I've got it in good protective packaging, but I never had that. I think I had that to start with my records, a bit like you, Justin, and then I think the more and more my social group expanded and you play records for people or you go around someone's house to have a mix and you're having fun, I don't know, it was more about everyone having fun than it was me being able to keep that wrapped up indoors.
Right. Yeah.
But I think I had a set of cam belt drives to start with, and they weren't that good. But when I bought my Technics, I think 1200s at uni, off my student loan. That's the only way I could afford it. That's the only way I could afford it. But all my money was going on alcohol and drugs, effectively. And all my friends were like, if we don't do something, we're going to like just have the...
Well, you could have been, you know, you're enterprising, basically. If I get the debts, you know, if someone's going to hire me and I can make these things at some point.
Yeah.
Well, mine are second-hand ones. But, I mean, I had some Newmarks for ages.
Yeah.
They were cheap and they did the job, but I always wanted some Technics.
You would though, wouldn't you? Everyone wanted them, and I could never afford them. And even when I was DJing,
about £400 each, wasn't
it?
Yeah, actually easy. Well, £1,000 with a mix.
£1,000, it was.
You know, you've got anyone got a spare £1,000?
Yeah, no.
Certainly not.
Should have come to me. I'd have lent you some of my loans.
I remember, literally about 3 years ago, my mate went, "I'm gonna flog my 1210s on and put it on social media. Does anyone want them?" And I was like, "How much?" And he was like, £100 each, and I went, "I'll have them." And so I was like, "Brilliant! I've got my 1210s at last." You know, every club I've worked in, I've DJed on them and wanted them.
Yeah.
Could never afford them. Got £200. I think about 3 weeks later, Technics announced that we're going to stop making them.
That's
so I was like, "Brilliant!"
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they're